Welcome to the Life Unscripted Podcast with Rosabel, the place where genuine conversations meet inspiring stories, personal growth, and a dash of humor. I'm Rosabel, your host, inviting you to embrace life's unpredictable journey. Celebrate your unique story and find joy in everyday moments. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's explore together. I'm scripted, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Life Unscripted Podcast with Rosabel. I'm glad you're here, where we keep it real, raw, and always from the heart. I'm your host, Rosabel Sofel, and today, do we have a guest for you? We'll be talking with someone who brings clarity to the chaos, warmth to the wound care, and just the right dose of heart and humor to health conversations. He is Todd Lane. He's a board-certified family nurse practitioner like me. All right. A seasoned expert in everything from hospice to emergency room, and now the host of his own podcast called TadBit with Tad. Just a tad bit smarter. Please welcome Todd E. Lane.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here. Well, so let's start right there. Tad, you had a wide range of careers in healthcare, hospitals, hospice, wound care, palliative care, and now podcasting. I mean, what was that moment when you realized, okay, people need more than just treatment, they need understanding?
Yeah. It just, when I got into nursing, I think that was one of my biggest attributes, just trying to connect with people. And I felt like there was a niche there, folks that just, wanted someone to listen and a way to understand exactly what all the chaos is about. What does this diagnosis mean? How can I improve myself? I felt like it was a good opportunity.
That's awesome. What was the spark that that actually led you to start TadBit with Todd? Like, what was that like? Okay, this is it, and this is why I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, well, to be honest to you, it was kind of a mixture of things. One thing was people they know I'm a nurse practitioner, so I would get all these random text messages or questions from, acquaintances or friends, maybe not even just acquaintances. And, they'd ask me something. As a provider, even as a nurse, you got to be cautious in what you say to someone, because they may take it as if I'm treating them, right? And so it's not that, it's just practical suggestions. And so it got to the point where I said, that was one thing. And then the second thing was, to be honest, I have insomnia. And so I just couldn't fall asleep, or maybe just me working long hours in the emergency room. I'm used to being up at night. So I said it one night, I said, well, let me just put something on a podcast, or at least begin it and see if, it draws any attention, see if I can help someone with it. And so those two things work together, and that led to the creation of the TadBit.
Oh, that is awesome. And I can understand where you're coming from, because as nurses, it's really hard not to want to step in and help. And especially if we feel like, okay, we know this and we want to share our knowledge, and we want to, but at the same time, like you say, we want to be responsible with it. So totally understand. Why do you think so many patients feel overwhelmed and confused about their health, like even in today's information-rich world? What do you think is that?
I think it's a mixture of things. I think one of the things is there is so much information. And so what information is the correct information? Well, there's information overload. And then there's a lot of, frankly, false information. And there's so many different opinions. And you got Dr. Google, which you could easily type in anything and find an answer. And so I believe that's just the one thing. And then healthcare in general is so complicated. I think what I like about me doing primary care is the fact that doing primary care, you have opportunity to kind of take more time and develop a relationship with a patient. And so you have more leeway, you have more opportunity to really kind of to really just sit down with the patient and get on their level, and you can help them navigate the complexities of healthcare, because healthcare, there's no doubt about it, especially in the States, it's just very complex. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you did talk about making things practical, like understandable, perhaps relatable, and even useful. Can you share an example of a moment when a listener told you that the show actually helped them? in any way?
Yeah, I think with my show, when I started it, I just started it. And of course, you started with your acquaintances that you already know on that's already on your social media network, right? And so, I mean, as far as advertising or just getting it out there. And so I believe one of the biggest shows I had that found the most success was about weight management and diabetes, and the GLP-1s and the weight loss drugs and just metabolism. And so actually a lady that she goes, we go to the same church, right? And so I wouldn't expect, when you put out a show, you don't know who's going to listen to it, but you hope that most people listen to it. But I've gotten a lot of different responses from, a different, like, hey, appreciative comments from, people that perhaps go to my church, or I just routinely knew them, or maybe they sent me like a message. But I think that was the biggest one with the church member who just, and matter of fact, the same thing happened probably just last week. I got another response, and they said, "Oh yeah, I saw your show," and I'm like, "Well, I hope I didn't embarrass myself." But I think those are the biggest moments whenever I guess you just don't know who you're going to relate to, and then for those two to reach out and say, "Oh yeah, I appreciate that," or that was a good piece of information for me. That really touched me because it helped me to appreciate that. What, we all are the same, and as long as you give something to someone practically, and especially with patients who, they're going to go see their primary or their doctors or providers, nurse practitioners, and maybe they don't have the time to really to give them because healthcare is so complicated. But just to hear something practically from a podcast without, treating. And I make sure that people know that when the show starts, I'm not diagnosing anything. I'm just giving practical information. People appreciate that. And so I hope that answered the question.
Yes. And then it seems like you have also expanded your show to beyond just medical education, burned out in boundaries, connection. Has the shift changed your mission and your audience, or how is that?
I would say, to be honest, it is a work in progress, but I do feel strongly that it's going to be the right move. Um, I do think that practicality of small things in life is very important, and people appreciate small little things. They really do, because
Yes, they do.
if you
Yeah.
can do, small little things, like you don't have to do anything magnificent, but if you just do something small, people appreciate that. And so that was the shift where I felt like this season of the show where I need to go. And so it's still a work in progress, but a couple of my guests that I had, they even mentioned, yeah, that sounds good. So that's the goal. And the goal is just to help people as much as I can.
Absolutely, yes. And every season, every episode is completely different than the other, even if we're on the same topic exactly.
Mhm.
Why, when it comes to communication, what do you think healthcare professionals still get it wrong?
So I did a show maybe a couple weeks ago, and really interesting. I think, the host or the guest, she mentioned something that was profound, and it was coming from a patient's perspective. And she said, essentially, a doctor basically, he asked her, hey, look, what do you want me to do? I mean, because apparently there was like a lot of complexity to the case. And she said, well, really, the only thing I wanted that doctor to do was to care. Right. And so I think really lots of time, and, I level that I think really every provider wants, I want to genuinely believe if you get into medicine or care, you want to help. No one wants to get into it to harm. That's like the Hippocratic Oath, right? You want to help. But I just think just because of the complexities and just because of how dynamic and complicated healthcare is in general, I think the lack of the communication doesn't necessarily come from the provider. It could come from just so many different opinions. And like I say, you got Dr. Google, um, and then you have to really rely on the team that you work with to execute with you. Because if your team doesn't execute and they give off the wrong information, even if something's subtle, that could really just mess up the communication. Now the patient is, now they question everything. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we got to work on as far as healthcare.
Yeah. Now shifting it a little bit, yeah, because of like you mentioned, that is definitely a complex topic. You know, the whole communication style. I think when it comes to communication, I mean, it's not just in healthcare, but it's in general. You know, communication is definitely is always going to be a big part of the puzzle when it comes to relating to other human beings. Now, how do you think? How's podcasting transform your life, if so?
I would say it has, I think this is just like a part of it. I think me personally, as a professional, excuse me, I'm trying to become more of a leader, just trying to be able to think about this big responsibility I have as far as, people putting trust in me, right? To help them out, medically. And so now that I've, maintained a level of, goodness to it, I think really the big thing is podcasting has helped me to become more of a leader and think more of an individual besides a individual employee or provider. I'm thinking more of a hey, I'm trying to give some information to someone without asking anything in return and hoping that it's going to help someone. So I guess a transformational leadership is where podcasting has helped me out, just to think about
Very
things.
good. Definitely expands our horizon when it comes to, for me, it's like I'm listening. It's making me a better listener for once. And it's also helping me to see other perspectives. Especially, I am here in this space. I don't delve too much into healthcare necessarily. I mean, people know, yeah, I'm a nurse practitioner, want to talk about it because it's a little different niche. I'm more into the day-to-day life stories. I started it, sharing my book and so on. But as I am going through and I'm seeing people's different stories behind, there's a little bit of everything. It's amazing. It's amazing too. For me, also has been more about allowing people to have their voice heard, to be heard, and interesting. Some people say, well, podcasting is, some people think that podcasting is some sort of like a debate when you kind of like interrupt here and there, like a back and forth, perhaps conversation. But my style per se is more like I like to listen. And as I go, I can ask questions and whatnot. But we all develop our own styles in it, and there's nothing wrong with it. So that's where the uniqueness, the originality of our shows come into place, which that way makes it, we have a show for everyone. So
Mm-hmm.
now I have a question for you. If someone right now is listening or they're listening today and perhaps they're feeling like overwhelmed or on their own health journey, let's say, what is something that you would want them to know?
I gotta think about that. I would think that the biggest thing is that, and I believe you said this whenever you was on my show. Guess what? You're not alone. Even though you may feel that way, you're not alone. Someone has experienced it before, and really, it's just about finding that audience, or finding that avenue, or finding that community help. And really, I think that, frankly, social media, although yeah, it can be pretty. We don't want to be hooked to our phones. I mean, according to the science, there's risk of
Yes.
that. But there is so many avenues open that social media allows people to connect with, whether it be, as a matter of fact, one social media, I believe they're on Facebook. Shout out to this group. I have to look at the name, but it's about losing their mother. And then there's other social media outlets about, people that have cancer, or people that I haven't found them yet. I haven't, insomnia. I'm sure there's a group out there. As a matter of fact, I saw it before, but I just didn't go through with
I'm
it.
sure there
But
is.
yeah. I mean, but it's just so many other people, and it's just such a big, vast world out here. And I believe that if if someone is just overwhelmed, then and I believe honestly prayer helps. That's me personally. But I kind of think if you can just kind of find some type of way to just relax just a little bit, just like try to slow it down for just a brief moment. And if you search, I believe a person could, find some help. There's no doubt about it.
Yes. Take a deep breath. And then
Yeah.
something I learned recently, I never thought about this, from someone who was speaking in one of my prior episodes that were talking about suicide awareness. they have a very practical advice, and that is wait another day, 24
Yeah.
hours at least. And that makes a lot of sense because every 24 hours, every day, you can make that choice to continue to be here, to live, and so on. So, in other words, just take deep breaths because life is not easy, right? I mean, we all know that.
No.
And just for fun, what's one TadBit that surprised you, even you, after all these years in medicine, when you were like, wow, this is actually pretty cool?
I don't know. I don't know. There's too many. There's too
Yes.
many. There's too many. I just,
One that comes to mind that you're like, okay.
I think just honestly, and I know this is weird, but I was just thinking about this today, and this is a big deal, I guess, because what's going on nationally. But I'd say just a tad bits about, because my big thing is trying to maintain a healthy life, and so I believe diet and like exercise really does play a big, huge role in that. And so, you know, I just say this morning I had to go to a meeting and I didn't have a chance to make myself any. I usually prepare my meals like before I even leave the house, but I didn't have a chance to grab my breakfast. So I stopped at Bojangles, which is like a restaurant. I live in South Carolina, so it's around here. If
Yes,
you
I
know,
know
you know.
Bojangles. Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
So, and so this is maybe a little bit complicated, but really it's not. So, I said, well, what can I get to eat? So I just got like a little I got a cheese and egg biscuit, which, and the tad bit of that is, well, guess what? And I know this is kind of weird, but I didn't get the hash browns with it, and I didn't get the Coca-Cola with it. I said, I want to go kind of healthy. So I just got the biscuit, and then I went to the little 7-Eleven. I got a big thing of fruit, which costs $6, but it's fruit. That's the strawberries, the berries, and the grapes. And then I got myself a little Diet Coke. And so, I guess the tad bit of that is, 20 years ago, well, maybe not 20 years ago, but well, yeah, probably 20 years ago. I would have ate, the biggest sausage and egg and cheese, and probably would have had the hash browns with it, with the ketchup, and got a regular Coca-Cola with all the sugar. And it's just so many wasted calories. And, the consequences of that health wise, long term, it's unsustainable. And so that's why I said this, it's really huge what's going on in the nation right now as far as people trying to eat more healthy. And so that still baffles me to this day, just the diet that people have. Well, I can't say people, but frankly, the average American that we have that probably could be improved with access to more healthy diet and access to knowledge, access to,
Yes.
learning these things at a
Now
young
that you
age.
you mentioned this, I was all picturing all these memes in social media. Like one of them, it was like, I mean, this seems funny, but perhaps not. There might be some truth to this, but this meme was like actually David from Michelangelo. It was really really big, and they said something about if David of Michelangelo will go to the U.S. and he'll return this way, and he was like, I don't know, 400 pounds. It's kind of funny, not funny,
Yeah.
but in a way, reality in a sense.
Yep.
People are
Yep.
starting to see, and then I'm starting to notice more and more videos or where they're like showing like this is what they're actually putting into your food, or like I saw
Yes.
the other video about the color, the all these things. The thing is, what do we do with it? Because let me just say this: I remember, sending this info to people, and it's I don't know. There might still need to be a little bit of awakening because people are starting to see that, but are they making meaningful changes? Are they actually like stopping and say, okay, this is harmful to me. I'm gonna stop eating. I'm gonna stop eating this so many potato chips or all this because they keep saying. I mean, it's being said over and over again. We have to reduce the consumption of processed foods. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure we don't want to. It's hard to just quit cold turkey on that because, let's be honest. I mean, some of those foods are delicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can't stop. I mean, I'll be honest. I want to stop sodas altogether. In fact, I know sodas, but once in a while, I have to have that little Coke. But what I do is instead of having the 240 calorie one, I have the tiny one, the 90 cal, and maybe I only drink like half of it or something like that. So again, but you have to be mindful. You have to definitely be
Yeah.
mindful of those things. And so
Yeah.
for sure. And in a sense, I like how you approach everything, which is just honesty, kind of like what I do here in my show. It's just like a raw conversation. Again, I love the word honesty. That's what we need more of, not just more information, because information, there's plenty out there. And whether we
Mm-hmm.
call it information or misinformation, but I think what we need more is better conversations around health, burned out, boundaries, uh, and just being seen, And so, but I wanted to ask you something because honestly, I couldn't remember. Like I said, it's been a week. Is there, do you mind sharing a little bit of like your story? Is that something that you want to tell us, our audience, our listeners, a little bit about your story, how you became a nurse or any of that?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So, I'd say, well, if I'm from South Carolina, USA, and come from a small town. Yeah, very small town. And yeah, I got into nursing. I think honestly, what happened was whenever I was a kid, I think I was always pretty book smart. If I needed to study or needed to learn something, I definitely would. So I think my goal whenever I was a kid, honestly, I wanted to work in healthcare. I wanted to be a respiratory therapist. That was my goal that I wanted to do, in fact. And so what happened was my sister, she's a nurse, and my mom was a nurse's aide. And so my sister taught me, she said, no, nothing against respiratory therapists. I probably would have done it, but she said, you should go back to school to be a nurse. And so, or no, she said, you need to go to school to be a nurse. And I said, okay, well, let me give it a try. And honestly, I didn't know what I was getting to as a kid. I be honest to you. By the time I got into nursing school, I'll put it on record. Nursing changed my life. I think it made me a better person. Just the level of responsibility that you have to have in order to do it. So I got into that, and I started working in the emergency room as a student nurse tech. And I worked with, whenever you have the opportunity to work with remarkable people, not even work with them, but to learn something from remarkable people, like soak it up, take it as, like try to get something. If nothing else, just try to get some wisdom or just learn from their example. And so, I worked with a lot of great doctors, great nurses, great respiratory therapists. I mean, great counselors, great social work. I mean, the whole team was remarkable. And so I've got to thank them because, whenever I was a kid, they believed in me a whole lot more than what I did as myself as a kid, probably because I had the opportunity to work on different floors. But they said, no, you should work in the emergency room. It's like, okay, all right, let me, and I was like, you sure? They said, no, you should work in the emergency room. So we worked in the emergency room, stayed there for many years, finally got my registered nurse, got my bachelor's, and then got married. And then after that, I
Life
was like, well,
happened.
yeah, yep. Life happens. And I believe what happened was I was in the emergency room. I don't know how really I started noticing the nurse practitioners, and their rounding and how they worked. And so I just took an interest into that. Like say, I enrolled in a nurse practitioner school. Um, and that was a remarkable occasion. I mean, because whenever you're already a nurse, you're working full time, and now you're going back to nurse practitioner school. It's just, um, you really are dependent
It's a
upon who
lot of
you're.
work.
Yeah, it's a humongous amount of work, and so I look back at myself now. I'm like, man, that's man. How did I do that?
Mhm.
But I did it. I did it, but I worked with some great. Well, I had some great preceptors as far as the nurse practitioners and doctors I worked with. And I believe once again, if you get around remarkable people, try to take try to learn from them. Try to, if nothing else, learn from their example. Somehow, some way they got to where they are. And so just take something from it. Try to learn something from them. And so they challenged me. Hey, look, you can do this better. Here's how you approach this. Here's how you do that. And so finally got done with the nurse practitioner school. And then I was accepted into a fellowship for nurse practitioners. Like my first year as a nurse practitioner. And I had the opportunity to work in different offices, the hospital organization. And it was a challenge as well. I learned a lot. the providers I work with, they challenged me. I think they made me better. And so after all that, here I am today. And it's just been a remarkable journey. I can't say, like, I don't want to put it all on me. Like, I thank God I did put in the work, but I got to thank all the people that, and if they know, they rode with me. They gave me the opportunity. They pushed me. Even when I thought that, I couldn't keep going, but they helped me out a lot.
Yes.
And including my wife. Let me thank my wife, because she'll probably listen to this. And honey bun, yeah, I thank her too. So yeah, it was just a great journey. So yeah, here I am today.
Yes, I feel the same way. Because right now we're in a good position, a good place, and we often forget what we have to go through, and those days when in a way, I think we all have gone through that, where we felt like, oh my gosh, are we gonna ever? I remember doing some crying and whatnot. Not because it was like I graduated during the pandemic in 2020, and finding preceptors was not an easy thing, and so it was a lot of work. But in a sense, it proved, we either proved us or we proved that we really wanted this, because I kept on pushing, we keep on pushing, and that's how you get to to do things, by just showing up and doing it all over again. But before we wrap up, I want, where can listeners find you? I mean, your podcast, and follow your journey.
Yeah, so you can find me. You can find me on Spotify. That's like the major outlet right there. It's called TadBit, with TadBit Smarter. But also, I think I'm on the Apple and the Amazon. You can find me on Amazon for sure. Yeah, you can find me there. And I'm really on this TikTok thing a lot. I got a long way to go, but I find TikTok as pretty cool. Yeah. You can find me on there. Just type me up, Tad, TADD Lane, LANE. Or now, I think I'm TadBit. Yeah, I'm TadBit. I'm TadBit there. So yeah, look for me there. TadBit.
Are you on Facebook too?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. Are you on Facebook as TadBit?
Yeah, I've got like multiple profiles. I got the one as Tad Lane, but no, on Facebook. Yeah, thanks for correcting me. No, on Facebook, I think I'm just Tad Lane. Yeah, just Tad Lane on Facebook. But yeah, find me there. All righty.
Well, thank you so very much. Thank you for doing a work that really matters. I know our listeners all are walking away today feeling a tad bit smarter and a whole lot more empowered. So to our listeners, if you love this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to the Life Unscripted with Rosabel. And also go follow Tad's show. I mean, a TadBit with Tad. You'll find links to both of our podcasts in the show notes. I'm also going to be putting out a blog article, because I always do a blog article of my guest conversations. I'll send it to you, and so you can share it with all your friends, and kind of talks a little bit, just summarizes our conversation here. But again, you'll find links to both of our podcasts in the show notes. And hey, if you learned something new today, share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it, So until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep living life unscripted. Thank you, Tad.
Thank you.
I want to invite you, yes, you listening right now, to check out my book, The Courage to Succeed: A True American Dream. It is available now on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble. This is a story of resilience, grit, and what it really means to chase your dreams, even when the odds are stacked against you. If you ever face fear, failure, or uncertainty, this book will meet you right there and remind you that courage always has a voice. Just search The Courage to Succeed: A True American Dream by Rosabel on Amazon, or head to the link in the show notes, because your dream is worth it and your courage can take you there.